Today, we'll be discussing the invasion, animating missing episodes, and why the Space Pirates was doomed to be missing from the very beginning. Our 25th missing serial is The Invasion. The Doctor joins his friend, Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. They discover a plot involving the Cybermen. They plan to use handheld radios distributed by International Electromatics to hypnotise the people of Earth. Sadly, episode 1 and 4 are missing from the archive. So, what does exist? For the first time in a while, the highest quality recordings was not made by Graham Strong. It was made by an off-air recording in Australia. The identity of the recorder is unknown, but is assumed to be Australian due to the continuity announcements being made in an Australian accent. Yet sadly, no tally snaps exist for this story. 3 prints of The Invasion were created and sent out. Australia returned theirs to the BBC, Singapore's fate is unknown, and Gibraltar most likely returned it to the BBC after broadcast. Behind the scenes, the producers were discussing changing Doctor Who forever. Peter Bryan and Derek Sherwin discussed the idea of doing more Earth-based stories, especially due to the success of The Web of Fear. The Invasion was to be considered a test pilot for this idea, with the intention of making Season 7 based solely on Earth. During this time, Patrick Troughtons decided Season 6 would be his final season, and asked Fraser Hines to stay so they could leave together, despite Fraser's agent telling him to leave earlier. Nicholas Courtney was offered a more permanent role as the Brigadier in the next season, which he agreed to instantly. So, how can you watch The Invasion today? The Invasion was animated by Cosgrove Hall in 2006. In 1993, the VHS contained video links, similar to the ones from The Crusade. This time, it included actor Nicholas Courtney, who explained what happened in the missing episodes. This is also available on the DVD release. Loose Cannon released The Invasion in 2003 under LC-19. The audio was released in 2004, narrated by Fraser Hines. It was re-released in 2006 and 2012. The novelization was released in 1985. Let's talk animations. In recent years, Doctor Who's missing episodes have started to become officially animated by the BBC, which for many fans has been a welcome way of representing the missing episodes. Let's take a look back to the first officially animated episode of Doctor Who, The Invasion, from 2006. James Goss had approached Cosgrove Hall, who had made Doctor Who Scream of the Shauker, and asked if they were interested in doing a black and white animation. The original edit that was delivered was deemed to have too many impressive camera shots and special effects that just would not have been possible to do in the 1960s. Therefore, they were recommissioned to make changes to match more of the original style, but these were only a few minor changes. Upon its release, it was heavily popular, yet it wasn't another 6 years until the BBC attempted another official animation. The Reign of Terror was animated by Planet 55 and released in January 2013. Later that year in August, The Ice Warriors was released, animated by Curious Entertainment. The 10th Planet was also released and animated by Planet 55 in October. The next year, The Moonbase was animated by Planet 55 and was released in January. These previous stories fell under the 2 or less missing episodes banner, which led to many people wondering why The Underwater Menace and The Crusade were never animated, due to the fact they only had 2 episodes missing each. 2 years later, BBC Studios started completing a Doctor Who animation almost yearly, starting with The Power of the Daleks in 2016. This marked the first time a full serial was animated, without any surviving episodes. Shada, an incomplete episode not technically missing, was animated in 2017, and The Macra Terror was animated in 2019. Our 26th and final missing episode is The Space Pirates. A space beacon is about to be blown apart by a few space pirates, intent on stealing a mineral kept on it. Unfortunately for the Doctor and friends, they have just landed in the detonation zone. Only episode 2 survives of the serial. So, what does exist? Similar to The Invasion, the highest quality recording was made by an unidentified Australian. Before you ask, It Wasn't Me. Holman and Landon also made recordings. Episode 2 exists in a 35mm film negative. The episode itself was shot on 35mm film, and it was kept due to its cultural significance. A reel of 35mm film sequences exist for episodes 1 and 2. Sadly, no telesnaps exist for this story. 3 prints of the Space Pirates were sent out. Australia returned theirs, Singapore most likely destroyed them, and Zambia does not contain any BBC material. It would seem that the Space Pirates was doomed from the very beginning. The destruction of the Space Pirates was almost foreshadowed. During the processing of the film, a small section was damaged. The scene was remounted soon after. Luckily, it only required Patrick Troughtons, supervised by special effects designer John Wood. Interestingly, an uncredited floor assistant by the name of John Nathan Turner worked on the story, who had some impact on the future of the program. Wendy Padbury sent me this video about this story.
An actor called Esmond Knight, who I distinctly remember because Edmund had a false eye. His party trick was to take that false eye out and sort of put it on the table in front of you, so when you were about to do a scene and you were supposed to be rummaging to find something on the desk, you'd come across his eye. So that was one thing I clearly remember.
Thank you Wendy, Ben, and Phantom Films for sending me this video. How can you view the Space Pirates today? The Space Pirates has not been officially animated by the BBC, and episode 2 exists on the Lost in Time box set. The Space Pirates was reconstructed by Loose Cannon as LC-28 in 2007. The audio release was narrated by Fraser Hines and released in 2003. The novel was released in 1990. So, that was the black and white era. But what about the colour era? Today, we will discuss the Pertwee missing episodes. But I bet you're asking out loud to your screen, but Josh, I have all the Pertwee episodes on DVD. Well, you're not wrong. A few Pertwee episodes do not exist in their original colour format. There are 2 ways of returning the original colour to these images. Some of these missing colour stories exist in a low quality colour videotape. By pairing the colour signal from these videotapes with the high quality black and white film recordings, a colour version can exist. The stories in your home media releases that use this technique are Doctor Who and the Silurians, Terror of the Autons, The Daemons, and The Time Monster. Colour recovery seems almost like magic. Chroma dots are an artifact that exists when displaying an unfiltered analog colour signal on a black and white monitor, which are found from recordings that were originally made in colour. They are able to extract the colour signal from these chroma dots and recover the colour that is missing to varying degrees of success. This process was used for the Ambassadors of Death, The Mind of Evil, Planet of the Daleks, and The Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Episode 1 of Invasion of the Dinosaurs only contains colour information from red and green, and not blue. Therefore, the colour version on your DVD is enabled as a special feature, due to it not being at a high standard compared to the other releases. Episode 1 of The Mind of Evil contained no colour information, therefore it was manually colorised by Stuart Humphreys and Peter Crocker. So, there we have it. The conclusion of this 9-part investigation into the missing episodes of Doctor Who. But what does the future hold for these beloved tales? Film stock doesn't last forever if stored incorrectly, and it will eventually deteriorate. The missing episodes tale can sometimes be sad and discouraging, but it's really a story of fan communities at their best. Eccentric Doctor Who fans who aimed their 8mm cameras at their television set, who told their parents to keep quiet whilst they recorded the audio, pretending to be researchers to gain access to censor clips, spending months and years painstakingly recreating these stories for reconstructions, animating these adventures and screening them on a cinema screen. To all these crazy Doctor Who nuts, we owe so much, who we all should be eternally grateful for. Thank you. Thank you for watching this 9-part series. It's been a crazy few weeks. Thank you all for your comments, positive and otherwise. I've loved having an entire forum thread analysing my stupid gay voice. I've smiled at every comment that's been posted, and receiving a video from Peter Purvis and Wendy Padbury. This is only the beginning. There are so many stories about the history of Doctor Who to be told, and it's far from being all over. And for the last time, which one of these stories would you like to see return to the archive most? Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter.